of course, the biggest losers, I think, are the American people, because they're going to end up with less choice and paying more money. And I think when they start feeling that, then there's going to be a lot more pressure to start correcting some of the havoc that is currently being caused.
Deborah Meaden, what on earth is going on?
Oh, that's the question of the year, isn't it? I've spent the last day and a half just trying to calm everybody, because nobody really understands the implications of what's going on at the moment. Nobody really understands, is this the end game, or are we halfway through the piece playing out? So who knows? Who knows what's going on?
Well, I mean, let's look at the markets where we can see in numbers what is going on. Are we still in correction territory, or are we now heading for a full-blown crash?
Well, I am concerned. I think the things the markets hate the most is instability and not knowing. And not only have we got these massive changes in tariffs, nobody's really sure whether that could change tomorrow. And that is the absolute thing that markets really, really don't like. And I've just seen no evidence that it's sort of plateauing out. I think that every day something else comes up that starts worrying us all. So, I'm concerned.
And just to spell out to people, because people see the markets going down, they bounce back up, why does it matter?
Well, so if I was looking at my pensions now, for example, so on a personal level, if I was looking at my pension, and I've been talking to several people, if it's not coming out for the next 20 years, don't worry about it. But if I'm looking to retire tomorrow and I'm actually relying on that cash, this hits me as a person individually. It's very worrying. But of course, the world economy is totally interconnected. And if trillions of pounds are wiped out of an economy, that has an effect on absolutely everybody, and that ends up worrying the consumer. The consumer consumes less. And therefore you do get yourself into this downward spiral. So, there's no point talking about the UK on its own, because this is a global issue. Trump has managed to create havoc across the globe.
I mean, it's essentially one man launching a sort of economic war, isn't it?
I know Trump's had this issue about tariffs for years, but it isn't just one man, isn't it? Is it? Because there must be people who believe that he is doing the right thing.
Well, I don't know.
Uh,
No one seems to be able to stand up to him. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it sort of does feel like an individual, creating not just havoc, the potential for a war economically. That's what it comes down to.
Well, there must be people around him supporting him, and and the fact that people aren't standing up to him, that's supporting him. There are mechanisms to say enough, and that isn't happening. So but I do think that. Of course, the biggest losers, I think, are the American people, because they're going to end up with less choice and paying more money. And I think when they start feeling that, then there's going to be a lot more pressure to start correcting some of the havoc that is currently being caused.
Well, he says he's not going to change his policies. Do you believe that, or do you think he will when you look at what's happening around the world in the stock markets, but also retaliatory tariffs you've seen from China, for example? Do you think that will focus his mind and he will be forced to retreat?
I think that when it starts affecting his vote, when it starts affecting, when he starts looking at the midterms, when he starts thinking this could affect me, he won't make a direct connection between countries forcing him into doing that, but he will find a way of correcting, I believe, that will help him save face. It'll be all about how he's looking after the American people. So I think he's going to be forced to relook at the things he's doing. And actually, I think he's already recognizing that. He's kind of saying, I put all of these out, now I'm expecting all of the telephone calls. So and he didn't necessarily get them. So I think he might be learning that the world isn't necessarily going to respond in the way that he expects it to.
So always with your business hat on, of course, but do you want Keir Starmer to hold out as long as possible to try and get a trade deal over the line? Or does there come a point when we have to say, sorry, mate, we've got to retaliate?
So the difference between what I want and what I suspect we need to do is quite a chasm. I think that Keir Starmer's actually played a very good game. He's kept our options open. My worry is that Trump sees that as a weakness. So I suspect there will come a time when we absolutely will not be able to bend or comply with some of the demands that come out of the US. We will just find it too unpalatable. And I do think, and I know Keir Starmer was already saying, the world leaders now need to talk to each other about this. I do think that we're going to have to start building those relationships, and particularly
Europe,
with
for example.
absolutely Europe,
Yeah.
and we need to get over the ideology of Brexit, was whether it was right or it was wrong. It's done. But they are the second biggest economy in the world after the US.
So,
They are
so
on our doorstep.
is it make your mind up time? And actually, Keir Starmer's got to choose the EU over the US now.
I think he needs to be careful. There will be technical reasons that he can't move too far away from the EU because, of course, we are quite tightly aligned. Most of our goods can still be sold in the EU because we still have the same kind of regulations that they do. If we move too far away from that and we allow ourselves to agree to things like chlorinated chicken, too much hormone in the beef, then that we won't be able to trade with the EU because we will have diverged too much. That's, I think, when it comes to crunch point.
So crunch point. Let's talk about that crunch point. If you look at the geopolitics now, what's going on in America, how Donald Trump has conducted himself, if push comes to shove, has it got to be the EU now? We throw a lot in with the EU.
Well, I think it does, and I think simply because it is the second biggest economy in the world, and it is proving itself to be considerably more stable and consistent than our US partners were. We are living in a completely different world. So, on pure, and the fact that it's on our doorstep, and the fact that we have a lot of trading relationships there anyway. So I think there's many reasons. It's really sad that it has got to come to a choice, because that's not really how the world should be working, is it? I mean, that economically and for stability reasons and security reasons.
Two final questions. With your sort of spidey business sense, just an instinct, are you feeling this is heading towards depression territory or global recession territory?
I hope it's not depression. I think we've seen depression before, and I would like to think that we have learnt and there's enough mechanisms to pull out of it. I think we're going to struggle to avoid a recession
Around the world.
around the world. Yeah.
Mm.
And that affects, we don't live as, we are an island, but we're not an island in the global economy.
Mm.
We are affected by everything else.
Well, that
Sorry.
brings me to my final question, because, a lot of people have looked at what globalization has done. And part of the reason for Brexit, part of the reason for Donald Trump being elected is that they don't feel that globalization has really worked for them. So new era, as Keir Starmer says, does that mean basically an end of globalization? And we start to look at, onshoring, making workers' rights, considering that above cheap goods, and also considering the planet above, hauling in stuff from China?
Well, in an ideal world for me, I would like to think that we would consume less. It's better. I'm really worried about the environment. Everybody knows that. So I'd like to think we consume less. That we'd be happy to pay more money but spend it on fewer goods. But the reality is, we're used to choice. We're used to lower prices, and globalization delivers that. It's all very well to sit in a globalized world and think, what would it be like if we just looked after ourselves? Well, our choice would be minute. Our supermarkets would certainly look very different. Things would cost us an awful lot more money, and we would simply have to do without things because we don't have the raw materials. So it's very easy to think that I don't like globalization, and every bone in my body says, why are we flying all this stuff around the world? But the truth of the matter is, it does improve people's lives.
Deborah Meaden, thanks very much.